Our scripture this morning is from the book of Mark, chapter 16. When the Sabbath was over, Mary of Magdala, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought perfumed oil so that they could anoint Jesus. Very early, just after sunrise on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb. They were saying to one another, "Who will roll back the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked, they found that the huge stone had been rolled back. On entering the tomb, they saw a young person sitting on the right, dressed in a white robe. They were very frightened, but the youth reassured them, "Do not be amazed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, the one who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? Now, go and tell the disciples and Peter, Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee, where you will see him just as he told you." They made their way out and fled from the tomb, bewildered and trembling. But they said nothing to anyone because they were so afraid. Ancient words for our present day consideration.
Well, I have to admit, I had a stress dream last night. And it wasn't because I thought there'd be a lot of people here. That's wonderful. I love that. After COVID, we're happy anybody shows up. So we're grateful to all of you. But I always worry when somebody lives nearby and they see it's Easter and they see our church and that they're going to come and hear a traditional message. I've got 40 years of watching first disappointment, but then melts into horror. Can we let our children hear this abomination? So I get that. I wish I could do that. I can't. When I look at our nation and I see the pathological state of so much Christianity, I have to conclude that it goes into the foundation of what's been passed along. And I believe that a very loving message, a very open-minded message, got to Europe and got edited, to say it nicely. When we look at our nation and see what the church is doing, this predatory body, I'm much too sensitive to use the word Christo-fascist, but I can't think of a more accurate term. What is fascism? When somebody believes other people shouldn't be able to live their lives, books should be censored if they don't say what people want to hear. And the nation should be claimed for this sect is as far away from Jesus as a person can get. And yet they have the megaphone. I know Christians whose favorite passage in the Bible is the Second Amendment. They believe that Jesus didn't really say turn the other cheek, or at least he didn't mean it. What he meant was stand your ground. I didn't notice if she's watching on Zoom, but we have a woman who comes to one of our classes during the week on Zoom who was fired recently. She's a teacher. And like teachers all over the country, she had a child that was talking about if a shooter came in to the school, he was going to open up the window and outrun the bullets. And she tried to explain to him, it doesn't work like that. Well, a parent complained. She was attacking guns. And so she was let go. On the complaint of one parent. That's what America has sunk to. It's the vigilante policies of the Republican Party. where the most illiterate, ignorant parent in a school can trump, and I use that word, the pun, intentionally, can trump someone who's given their life to education, who knows better. Doctors who are being threatened for offering the best services and the best care. Professors who teach an honest version of American history are being vilified and attacked by the church. Not all of the church, but if it's any of the church, the rest of the church has got to stand up. Right? We don't get to sit on the sidelines. If somebody speaks in our name, then we've got to be on the roof shouting. And when people are pro-life, as long as that life is in a woman that they can control, but as soon as the kid grows a little hair and teeth and starts breathing, the right to life is over. No medicine, no lunches. There are people in the church that call themselves right to life, but that right to life ends at birth. So I don't want this Easter sermon to be complicit with that version of Christianity. And I don't think it's bad people that are doing it. I think when you have magical religion, that's where the bus goes. When you have sectarian religion, that's where the bus goes. And you and I may have a more benign version of that. But I think it's a gift to the world to ask ourselves the question, what does my religion mean for other people, particular people that are very different and who are very vulnerable when it comes to the culture and to society? What I want to suggest is when we take a symbol in Christianity, there need to be 3 tests that we give it. And I've said this before, but it's been a while. A symbol is only true if it's true for everyone, everywhere, all the time. So we're going to walk through that little short list. What I'm going to suggest is the pathology we see in modern Christianity, to a large extent, is a result of people who don't realize that. They've not been taught that. Our story today, let's look at the picture. This will be, if you don't want to hear the sermon, you can look at the picture. And don't think I won't see you doing it. So that's a very traditional expression of the resurrection. They open the tomb's already open, they go there to put the spices on, and it's been rolled aside, and there's an angel in there. Now, in Mark, which was the first of the Gospels, it wasn't an angel. It was just some guy in white. Which, as I've pointed out before, in the mystery religions, that's someone who's been initiated in a cave. Right? So in the Christian story, when you see the cave, and you see a person in white, they're trying to give you a gift about your own life. What would your Christianity be like if the foundation was an empty tomb? Not the angels, not the songs, What if life looked exactly the same to the people who knew Jesus than it does to you? You probably don't have too many angels with the big wings in your life. And I don't think that's what the symbol ever meant. The symbols were never meant to be taken literally. But there's information that comes to us. There's connections we feel that can be symbolized by angels. But if you were from a different culture, that's not what you might use spirit animals. There'd be all kinds of ways you do it, but you wouldn't see a person with parakeet wings. Probably. I'm already being offensive, I'm sorry. We look at other religions and we see them as mythological, these centaurs and all this kind of thing. But our symbols are just as mythological. And that's a good thing because they're really talking about the transcendent. what lies underneath, what's too big, what's too deep, what's too mysterious. But we're human beings and we want to make it manageable. So we want to try to move the mystery into magic, because you can control magic. It's very possible that Jesus rose from the dead. It's also possible the body was stolen. Right? I mean, that's possible. It's possible the disciples stole it to keep the Romans from getting a hold of it. It's possible the Romans took it because they were afraid of a resurrection on the third day. The question I want to ask you is, do you want to live your life based on a maybe? Do you want to just bet your entire life that what somebody a long time ago told you, because somebody told them that? Or is it possible that the symbols are calling you to a deeper understanding of the human condition? Everywhere. Anybody can see the sacred if the cave is filled with angels. But if the story starts with an empty cave, and the punchline is they didn't tell anybody, they ran away because they were afraid, and that was the original ending of Mark, that's the foundation that I have, right? Doubt, sadness, depression. When you can find your bearing there, then you can come into the light and you've got something that can't be taken from you. Our hymn said that love is greater than hate. I agree. Life is greater or stronger than death. But light is not stronger than darkness. Darkness is essential to understanding your life. The psychologist Jung said, enlightenment, I'm kind of probably mixing his words. Well, I've got his. I'll go ahead and spare you having to look it up. But look it up anyway to make sure I'm not just making it up. It says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. I don't think we have to choose. It's okay to see figures of light if you realize that's your brain trying to put something that's invisible, something that's deeply mysterious, into an image where you can go around with it and hold it in your hand. But it's very important not to take it literally, because when you believe that the miracle happened in one place but not in some place else, when you believe that Israel is sacred, Palestine isn't, Americans are chosen, nobody else is, there are going to be problems. Right? You may be a very good person. You may be loving. You may give the shirt off your back. But there's going to be problems. There are lots of things that happen in between us and the world. A rainbow doesn't exist objectively. Right? You understand that the rainbow is sunlight coming through a raindrop, and it has a prism effect, and you see this beautiful arc. It's not unreal, because you see it and the person sitting next to you sees it too, but they're seeing a different rainbow. Right? They're seeing, the light they're seeing is coming through a different raindrop. So if you think the rainbow is a physical objective thing, and you go looking for the pot of gold at the end of it, I haven't found that very helpful. So the first idea is that sacred is everywhere. Wouldn't that be wonderful to not have to search for it? That instead of finding the sacred temple, the sacred mountain, the sacred preacher, I mean, y'all have already seen through this thing here. But what if you realize that when you get still that's what you settle into. That the sacred is everywhere. I think that's what the resurrection is a symbol of, trying to tell us that. The second thing, the little clue, the first clue was the person in white, that this is from the mystery religions. The second is when it calls it the eighth day. When it says it was the Sabbath and it's the next day after the Sabbath. In the mystery religions, that's very important. That means you're stepping out of time. You're talking about imagination. You're talking about vision. You're not talking about something you can find out in the real world. It's coming through an enlightened person. My favorite mystical hymn is the one we started with. Morning is broken. Like the first morning. Blackbird is spoken like the first bird. That's mysticism in a nutshell. Maybe the first bird was there, maybe not. But the bird I'm listening to now is as close as I need to get. Maybe Jesus rose from the dead, but maybe not. Maybe the person I'm sitting next to is as close as I need to get. Symbols are not, religious symbols, if they're healthy, are not symbols of something that happened. They're symbols of the principles by which everything happens, if that makes any sense. The laws of physics are not visible, they're not audible, but everything we care about are being expressed through that. Symbols are trying to get us past our senses and into what unifies us with everyone. When I was, I think I hadn't started seminary yet, I may have just started it, and I had some acting friends that went to Mexico on the coast there at the Pacific, and they had what's called a red tide. That's when algae swells up in the water and it glows. So it was no light whatsoever in the sky. It was cloudy. You couldn't see any light in the sky. You couldn't see any light in the ocean, except for the glowing of the waves as they broke. And I realized that's the human condition. We see the surface of things, but we don't see the dynamics that make everything happen. That's what the great sages and saints are trying to share with us. But it's an experience. It's not a literal happening. It's deeper and more profound than that. Yet it's trying to help us find our place in time. In the Christmas story, Jesus is born. I didn't realize this, so I went to Israel, and born in a cave. I always saw it as a little wooden shack. But when you go there, he's born in a cave. All the saviors are born in caves. From the ground of the earth they come. The womb of the cosmos. In the story, it begins when they bring spices. Do you remember? They bring spices, frankincense, myrrh. Those are funeral spices, according to a lot of scholars. So when, at the very end of the story, they come to a cave again with spices, it's recognizing that time is not random. If we live in the eternal now, we can experience the sacred no matter what is happening in the world. The final thing is this. We need to see the sacred in every being on the face of the planet. I think animals too, plants. But if we could just love each other, wouldn't that be good? But when we make the resurrection about Jesus, that doesn't happen. When it's just about Jesus, we don't realize that this is a gift for all of us. This is a love that includes all of us. It's about love, it's not about power. The resurrection is about love, it's not about power. It was not a one-time magic trick. I've been told much of my life that the resurrection proves everything Jesus taught. The power of God proves it. But think about that. If Hitler rose from the dead, well, let's follow him then. If following Jesus led you to hell, and following Satan led you to heaven, what would you choose? Won't tell you what I would choose, but it's about the cosmos. It's about what it means to be human in these kinds of circumstances. And it's saying that love is the only thing that makes our death okay. People were with Jesus after he was resurrected. They didn't recognize him. That's on purpose. Why do they tell stories where nobody recognizes him? Because it's not about that. They recognize him when they break bread. So it's not following this one person. What he's wanting more than anything is for us to love each other. Right? That's the passion. Not that he's got 3 nails, and that's not as bad as cancer. But that the people he loved and cared about were doing it. That's the crucifixion. So, when we look at this story of the resurrection, I think it's very important to not play into the pathologies of our time. But for that to happen, we have to realize that there's not holy places over here and profane places over here. We need to love this whole planet. Right? It's one ecology. We don't take care of all of it, we perish. Second, you don't have to die before you experience the resurrection. If there is an eternity, it's already started. So to live fully in this present moment is as close to heaven as you need to get. And finally, to realize that every person you meet is transformed by love, including yourself. The crucifixion and the resurrection are not primarily about Jesus. They're about us. They're about transforming our pain into love. And the secret that unlocks it all is that whatever is true of a symbol needs to be true for everyone, everywhere, all the time. So that's my understanding of this text. We'll take a moment for you to think about how you would have preached it.